Today is National Doctors Day. It is the 1st July 2021. It is a national day in India to honor the work of doctors and other frontline medical staff. Every year on July 1, India celebrates National Doctors Day in honor of Dr. Bidhan Chandra Roy, popularly known as BC Roy, a Bharat Ratna awardee, former Chief Minister of West Bengal, and one of the most popular Congress leaders from the Eastern India. So I am Dr. Rakesh Gupta, President and Director of Public Health Strategic Institute for Public Health Education and Research, and former Director of Health Services and Director of Chemical Examiner Lab Punjab. And I have with me Dr. Sonu Goyal. He is Professor in Department of Community Medicine and School of Public Health, PGIMER Chandigarh. And he's also a Program Director for International Public Health Management Development Program sponsored by Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. So dear viewers, we welcome you all to this very special edition of Cypher Health News channel, coinciding with National Doctors Day, 1st July 2021. And it is my proud privilege to introduce Padma Bhushan Professor Dr. N.K. Ganguli. So I welcome you, sir. So Padma Bhushan Professor Nirmal Kumar Ganguli is the former Director General, Indian Council of Medical Research. Professor Ganguli is MBBS from R.G. Kar Medical College, Calcutta University, and MD Microbiology from PGIMER Chandigarh. And he has been conferred with the 6th Doctorate of Science degrees by Indian universities. And he is the former president of the Jawaharlal Nehru Institute of Postgraduate Medical Education and Research, JIPMER, as well as that of the Asian Institute of Public Health, Bhubaneswar, Odisha, New Delhi. He is also a former director, PGIMER Chandigarh. He has been General President, Indian Science Congress Association, 2004-5, and a former President, National Academy of Medical Sciences, New Delhi.
So Padma Bhushan Professor Nirmal Kumar Ganguli has recently been appointed as Commissioner for Lancet Commission for Intervention of AIDS-transmitted viral diseases since February 2019. He is also a member of Advisory Board Post-Polio World since 2019. Besides, he is member of International Advisory Committee for IDAP, that is Integrative, Translational and Applied Physiology, since 2020. And Professor Ganguli has published more than 700 papers, that is to be precise, 775 research papers, and has supervised 130 PhD theses as supervisor/co-supervisor. He has been conferred with several prestigious awards, including 7 international and more than 100 national awards. And he has also been conferred with prestigious Padma Bhushan Award by Her Excellency, then the President of India, in 2008. In 2015, he has been selected for the award of Helmholtz International Fellow by Helmholtz Center for Infection Research, Germany, for his significant contribution to the field of infectious diseases. So welcome, Professor N.K. Ganguli, for being part of this Cypher Health talk.
So welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
So we'd like to know your views about the Doctors' Day, since because of the pandemic, as you said, that it is more important to discuss about the Doctors' Day because of the contribution of frontline workers, especially.
Actually, I never understood the significance of Doctors' Day when I started my medical career around 60 years back. And at that time, when we were house physicians, sometimes we gave duties stretching to almost 46 hours at a go. But even then, I had not realized that how important a doctor is. Although sometimes we were in awe when we had to hold a person's life in our hand, and many times it was helplessness because you couldn't do much because the advancement at that time was not this much either in the diagnostics or in the interventions. But during the COVID pandemics, I really understood that what's the responsibility of doctors and what they did when challenged. So wherever they were, whether they were in a private care center, when they were in the government, or if they were in the public health arena, the doctors actually took the whole burden on their shoulders willingly and gave service without adequate PPEs. Some of the doctors in the developing countries, they just cut off the plastics and wrapped them around and served the humanity. And in India, about 800 doctors have perished during this particular pandemic, and they uh, did whole because there was a very big shortage of doctors, paramedics, and nurses. They went on serving to exhaustion because no pandemic has actually lasted this long. It was almost 1.5 years that all of this lasted, and with a small relief in between, they had served. They have undergone huge pay cuts, 30 to 40%, at least in the organization which I served. That was the pay cut, which they underwent. They went through a trauma of endangering their families because they came back from the work and went to live in the families. Initially, there were some kind of a quarantine, but this could not be maintained for a long period. And they also went through this psychological stress of the communities who were in a huge stress. And their first phase of the person who served them and who they thought will save them was the doctor. And serving while you have lack of oxygen, while you have paucity of vaccines, while you don't have PPEs or you don't have enough ventilators, and making a choice which only God can make, like who should be served first and who should be served second, and who should be prioritized. So all of these were huge ethical and mental challenge, and the doctors had to go through this. So I join everyone in applauding the doctors, although I myself am a doctor, but I will applaud all the faceless doctors who serve billions of people around the globe for a longest stretch of the service which anybody could provide, and selflessly wherever they were, they they provided this service to humanity. So this was really sticking to the Hippocratic oath and giving something to the community without actually expecting a reward. Although people lit the lamps, people clapped, or people beat the thalis, but that was just something which was to boost their morale. But we need to know when we are through this epidemic, and even now when we are going through this epidemic or pandemic, we need to really see that how we will thank them adequately,
Right.
and in a fashion in which they will have a nice feeling in their heart.
Right.
So let us celebrate this Doctor Day this year as something very different.
So you'll be pleased to know that Cypher will be honoring COVID heroes from Chandigarh. There are 3 from PGI, 2 from Government Medical College Hospital, and 2 from our government multi-specialty hospital. So we'll be honoring them. And you're right that they have been working with poor infrastructure, poor facilities, and then they have really done a great job. So,
Right.
Dr. Sonu, yeah.
So, So thank you, Dr. Ganguli, for I think having your views on the doctors on doctors, and they are really pleasing, and I really appreciate these views. Sir, we want to know more about your early childhood days to your college days to your MD days. So because you are a tall figure now, so how you were there at the part of when you were a pre medical and when you did your MD?
Let me come to the college days. The college days were like everyone's college days. They were some of the most memorable days during my time. Although my entire family, right from the grandfather to mamas to brothers and sisters, mausis, everyone passed out from Lucknow Medical College. I was sent by my father to study medicine in Calcutta because at that time they thought that, and it was rightly so, that the medical education in Calcutta was very, very high standard. And even PGI, during its days when it started beginning, it got many people from there, including the famous cardiothoracic surgeons and pathologists and other medicine guys, and many of the faculty in PGI were drawn from that place. So it was quite a heady day of education. And the this place where I was educated, there was one course which has helped me even now today. That course was a course in chemistry. In the first year, there was a chemistry paper, and that was something which was very, very rewarding. And we had some of the very sterling teachers, like in the surgery we learned from K.C. Das, who was one of the doyens of surgery. And in the same way, in the physiology, which was also biochemistry, we learned from people who had discovered vitamins, some of the vitamins, they were in the front line of the discovery. And one thing I have never forgotten, the very close relationships with the consultants and the doctors. The classes didn't used to be very big classes. And so sometimes they brought food from their home, and they shared the food with us. And in all festivals and any major event, uh, we were invited, and we felt as if we had some very good mentors. So that was something which I will never forget. But one particular sentence I will never forget. We had lot of casualties on those days. In early PGI days, those casualties were also there. Like at least 25 to 30% students failed the examination. And in PGI also, in early days in the MD, this is what happened. Because we were told that you cannot make a single mistake. If you make that mistake, you will then kill someone. So that was never allowed. So one of my teachers, one day he was passing everyone. So one of his registrars, who was with him for many, many years, he asked him, "Sir, what has happened to you?" So he said, "Look, I have met my students after 25 years, whom I had passed and whom I have failed. And I found no difference between them. So what is the point of failing someone? It is better to teach them to stand on their feet. And it doesn't depend on who has scored very high marks and who didn't, but was much more successful in the life as he went forward. So it is what you really do with your life when you really grow up and when you practice your subject and go to the wide world. that actually makes you what you are today. It is not some scores during high school or intermediate or during your early years of education. So
Right.
this is something which was very, very important.
Right.
Then
Right.
I came to PGI Chandigarh. And PGI Chandigarh, when I came, I asked my father, who was in Karnal. Actually, we were migrant from Multan. And and we came to Karnal. So when I asked my father, when I wanted to come to PGI for interview, that where is PGI? Where is Chandigarh? So he said, son, I don't know where is Chandigarh. It will be somewhere near Ropar. Ropar was more famous than Chandigarh at that time. And then I landed here, and then I encountered my teacher, whose name was Dr. S.C. Agarwal, Satish Chandra Agarwal. And I had come to take admission in medicine. I was always a topper in my undergraduate education. So with that goal, I came. But he then brainwashed me that there's a new subject, and I had an aversion for that subject because I had gone to interview after my MBBS for a job because we were not paid. During internship, we didn't receive anything. And during MD, there was no fellowship during that. PGI, etc. had, but other people, places, they didn't have any fellowship. So I went for a job in order to do MD, and the interviews were Mukta Sen, who was the Calcutta School of National School of Hygiene Public Health Director at that time, Dr. Irade's mother, and Dr. Ranjit Sen, who was the chief of microbiology in Maulana Azad. So they asked me, what is microbiology? I didn't know what is microbiology. I never heard of the name. So I knew what is bacteriology or something like that. But that was not a subject which was taught during our undergraduate classes. So I funked the interview and was not selected. So when Dr. Agarwal said there's a new subject, PGI, we are starting it, and you join this, I will never forget this particular issue, because I said I don't want to do this. But so he brainwashed me. He was a person who was much before his time, and in those days, it was 1965. The DNA, etc., was discovered, and Watson and Crick were famous persons, and many microbiologists got the Nobel Prize at that time, Lederberg and many others. So, and he made me to write an application. Next day, he gave me then that you are selected. And then I went to microbiology department, and he didn't allow me to appear in interview in medicine. So I went there, and I uh, uh, found there were other faculties there. There were no students. And they said that you are mad. There were 5 people who have joined before you. All of have run away. So our advice is that run away. But that was a time when it was just in between, and I had no choice. But then my life was transformed. Dr. Agarwal and me set up a Warburg machine, which was a monster. During those days, people used to sell machines, but didn't do anything beyond that. So they set up this machine. We slept in the ward and set up this machine. And then he he gave me training on how to, he got his PhD in Oxford on mechanism of action of diphtheria toxin, that it actually interferes with protein synthesis. So he taught me how to make ribosomes, how to synthesize protein in the test tube, and how to inhibit the protein synthesis. So these were never taught in the class in those days. And then he gave me my MD topic, that was that L forms of Lister form of bacteria which do not have cell wall. So you treat them with vancomycin and penicillin, put them in a hypertonic medium. So they created a poached egg appearance like mycoplasma.
Right.
And he taught me how how the cell wall is synthesized. That was a big and great education.
Right.
And in that way, he taught us how to look at mutants, letterworks, experiment, how to extract DNA, and he taught us virology and everything. So one day when I went to USA, and he said that somebody met me. He said, I know you. I said, how? He said, I was the first person who published the first paper in respiratory syncytial viruses, and your paper was the second paper in the world. I couldn't tell him that I only held the flasks and other. It was my teacher who had done that. but that was the education which this guy
Right.
gave
Right.
me. And
Right.
one of the things I always remember, he one day made a cholera vaccine and said that on those times, I don't know whether there was ethical committees or not. And
Right.
then he gave us to drink cholera vaccine, and we challenged ourselves with 569B. I couldn't say anything to me. Both of us took the vaccine, and both of us took that challenge. Nothing happened to us, but we published about 6 papers back to back in very prestigious journals. And after that, and it was published, nobody asked us any ethical question.
Right.
After that, when he left, I left the area, not really believing in this work. But today, the vaccine, which is Shankol, is a similar vaccine which we did in Calcutta. So
Oh.
this was an education. So the teachers during those days, and we ate in his house. He got samosas, and it was a wonderful time.
Right.
Being the only student, it was a wonderful time in PGI during those days. Then
Right.
I will relate 2 or 3 more incidences there, which was really very, very remarkable incidents over there. Like those days, very few people went abroad. Only 25% was provided by PGI, and no other expenses. I was going to USA for a meeting. So I went to Dr. Chutani. But those days, you went to him and told him that I'm going to this and this. This was a custom. So he said, what will you do? I said, I will attend and come back, sir. Then he said, but you go and learn some more. So I then said that my salary at that time, I was a lecturer. So my salary as a tutor was 375 rupees, as a lecturer was 640 rupees, and assistant professor 1000 rupees. That used to be the salary in PGI. So when I told him, he said, okay, come, I make arrangements to visit some other institutes and come back to me. So when I went to him, he purchased by his own money 10 Bhusa tickets for me and gave me $2,000 of his own money to go and learn those. So these used to be PGI relationship with the director and a mere lecturer whom
Right.
nobody really knew.
Right.
So one more story about Dr. Chutani, and then I will tell a little bit about your own department at that time. So Dr. Chutani, one day, his friend, his class fellow was Dr. Nandlal Chitkara. He was our head of the department when Dr. Agarwal left. So one day Dr. Chitkara called me and told me that, well, Dr. Ganguli, Dr. Chutani has asked that you work on the gobar gas. I said, sir, I don't know what is gobar gas and I don't want to destroy my career. I'm not going to work on this. So he said, go and meet Dr. Chutani. So I went to Dr. Chutani. He said that I want to make PGI green. There are so many people who produce so much waste over here. I want to convert them into biogas and make PGI a green institute. So I told him, sir, why you had chosen me? Secondly, I have no interest in the area. So please excuse me. Then he said that, oh, okay, you pack your bag and leave tomorrow. So he was very fond of me, but then he was very strict in his things. So I came back and triumphantly read and went back to him and told him that, well, that's how it can't be done because humans don't have methane producing bacteria. So he said, are you a scientist? I said, I would like to think so, sir. So then he said, go and solve the problem. So I came back and tried to mix the human waste with the black dung of different proportion, fabricated an instrument, produced gas. So Dr. Chutani put up large number of latrines over there and two biogas plants. And then the kitchen and many other places were lit by the biogas there. I didn't leave my research. I went on doing it because fermentation was going to really kill most of the pathogens, human pathogens in the human waste. As you know, in Kashmir, they use night soil and there's a lot of Ascaris lumbricoides, sometimes even penetrating the intestine or the appendix. So these were all there. So I published and sent the paper to him as a sir with my compliment. He then destroyed all the biogas plant and all the latrines which he had built over there. And that was again something which you have to do sometimes when you are in the. One more incident I will tell you that is my relationship with the community medicine department. I got inducted into community medicine work when Dr. Vijay Kumar was there. And Dr. Vijay Kumar had a very big project. This project was that community control of the lower respiratory tract infection, because that's what the children were dying of. So at that time, cotrimoxazole was given in mass. And one of the things which we had to do, that whether the organisms are becoming resistant to cotrimoxazole or not. Then Dr. Vijay Kumar suddenly left and Sharad Iyengar took over the department. And he went on working with me. And one day, so we were doing the community control of rheumatic fever, rheumatic heart disease. And then Sharad Iyengar one day came and told me, sir, I want to set up something of my own. I said, why? The PGI job is so good and there is so much big future over here. So he said that, I get stifled in the government control. I want to work on my own with the community. And he left the job. He set up an NGO, became very successful NGO in Rajasthan. But then came Rajesh Kumar. And at that time, community medicine didn't have funds because suddenly it got starved of funds and it really couldn't really even walk. So then I started bringing in money to the community medicine. 3-4 major projects came. One was ARC fund for the rheumatic heart disease control. The second one was a persistent diarrhea diarrhea program, and then came the vitamin A supplementation program. And many times we did so well, we sometimes trained outsiders. Like you know that when we give even mega unit of vitamin A, sometimes it is not utilized because it gets absorbed through an intricate system of retinol binding proteins,
Right.
and then it doesn't enter the cells appropriately. If it is retinoic acid, it becomes very toxic. So we developed a test, very simple test on a simple piece of paper, that was a conjunctival smear. And if the vitamin A was good, the cell, it was intact cell of the epithelial cells, and the mucus secreting goblet cells were also there. And we set up also a chemical estimation of that. And people from John Hopkins came to train in that particular area. So that is how I actually nurtured, till I was there, I nurtured the community medicine department over there,
Right. Right, sir.
and had a lot of publications together. Later
Right.
on, when you, this particular blueprint of the unit which you have, when I went to ICMR as a DG, this was my one track ambition. And went on working with the PGI directors to get this proposal through, worked in the ministry to get this proposal through. And one of the things I had done was creating a network of the, because at that time PFHI also came up. But in the public health, you have to dirty your hand and feet, otherwise you don't. So there are elite public health people, and there are public health people who need to work on the with the communities. So with Dr. Ramdas, we could get the proposal through, and the building and whatever you had, there was a small contribution from my side, albeit remotely. And then when it was inaugurated, I came with Dr. Ramdas, who was the health minister there, and the inauguration happened. So I'm very happy to see the growth of this department now.
Right, sir.
And how many independent investigators have come up over there. So it always gives me a lot of pleasure to see this particular
Right.
department grow. So this was something about my undergraduate and PGI days. I told you some of the interesting features which many few in the PGI know.
Yeah. Right, sir. So I think, sir, wonderful. We are actually having those fruits, which actually the seeds which you have sown, and we have really seen that over a period of time since I think I was there in 2002. I was a senior resident, so I was seeing you at that point of time, a tall figure and a good collaboration and networking with the Department of Community Medicine when Dr. Rajesh Kumar was there. And even in our international public health management development programs, which you are conducted for international participants. So we invited you, and you graced this occasion of giving that leadership talk to the people from different countries of ITEC, different ITEC countries. And we have heard that, sir, from your lifetime. I think the hard work which you have done, and the persistence, and the teachers, the learning from the teachers. Like sometimes they are very strict and they are very frank, but strictness was for benefit of students. I think this is what we learned from you. And also that every problems has its own solutions. So whenever there is a problem, there is solution. So this is what teacher teaches us. So I think you have really exemplified that with your vast experience and discussion.
And
so
one more point I want to say,
yes,
in the community medicine development, Mathu Santosham was a very close friend of mine. He was also Dr. Walia. I don't know whether you know or not. Dr. Walia also got training in John Hopkins, and Mathu Santosham was his class fellow during those times when he was also getting training. So Mathu and the Rajesh Kumar and the public health relationship with your institute with Mathu was one of other small thing which we were able to do. And now with the global health strategies, because one of the things which I realized during my days, as you know, that I was basically, later on I forgot what I have. When UK I took fellowship, etc. I forgot what I am. But one of the things in a later period I found that communication and advocacy is a very important part of your interaction, because if you really don't do that, you really don't reach the people. Like this rheumatic heart disease, when we did successfully, very successful program, now it was not only Raipur and whole Ambala district, when
Right.
we asked the communities that what do you say of this work, they said, well sir, but our problem is tuberculosis. So the community really need to really, you need to work in something which the community really wants. And we learned it a very hard way. The one of the major thing I got involved in the NTDs, particularly leishmania control. The people who were beneficiaries were Musahars. They didn't have a house, they didn't have telephone, they didn't have um, they didn't read newspaper, and they were rat catchers. So these guys, whatever you told, they didn't understand your language. So one of the public health meetings which I had joined in Boston, there were four very powerful speakers over there. None of them were public health qualified people. One was a town planner. What he planned was, he planned a new Palestine, that if the Palestine comes, the how we, he was a Egyptian town planner in the Harvard. Then the second one was a musician. He was the he later on became the director of the Sony Music Corporation. His son has died of cancer. So through music, he created a tremendous program in people to take a message to people. The third one was a linguist. He could really play with the language. And fourth one was a filmmaker. At that time, the AIDS orphans were a very huge and big
Right.
problem. So he showcased the AIDS orphan problem, and even the hardened people had tears in their eyes. So you learned that the public health messages is ultimately to be delivered to the communities as they want it and in their cooperation and the way they will understand it. So one of the programs which I brought to India was with Dr. Andre Quadros, who was a musician in Boston University. So we had two very major programs with him through music in the Pondicherry area, in Gujarat area. We improved and showed improvement in health. We published that in very good journals, but the messaging was done through music,
Right.
which people understood very well.
Right.
So these are some of the things which you learn as you go forward. And global health strategies with Anjali Nair, I started working right from the AIDS days and AIDS vaccine days. And so when she set up the global health strategies, I set up an office there and helped them in many of their vaccine introduction initiatives. And the one of the relationship with PGI which has been established again remotely, that
Right.
was some of the things which was encouraged there.
Right.
Finally, one more thing which I did for the public health department, and you need to know about that, my relationship with Kirk Smith, because environment is also very important over. Kirk Smith was a Nobel laureate, and
Yeah.
I started working with Kirk Smith when he was in early days in Berkeley, and he wanted so many beneficiaries with his collaborations cropped up in India. which included PGI also. So, so some of the, although Dr. Jindal did with some smokeless chula work over here, but ultimately, when your public health department collaborated with Kirk Smith, it really grew up. So you could really serve your institute and your organization and your department when you are no longer there, and not in a way when you start claiming that you have. I have never talked to you about any of these things, nor
Yeah,
ever asked Rajesh to really tell anything anything to the department or any time. But today I thought that when we are reminiscing the my days in PGI and days after that, I thought that I should let you know that
yeah,
even when you are no longer there, you need to serve your alma mater. You need to serve the organizations and the departments with
right,
whom you had a close
right,
association. So that is why whenever your department ever invites me for anything, however busy and whatever I'm doing, I
right,
always stand up
right.
and come.
That's so great of you, sir, because just want to inform you, and you might be also be aware about the fact that we recently are about to have a book that is by Oxford University Press, in which we invited you to write a chapter on it, on change management, and you gladly accepted that. And now the book is coming in this year. So I think thank you all for all these things which you have done for public health.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So now over to Dr. Rakesh.
So thank you, Dr. Ganguli, sir, for letting us know about your experiences and wonderful experiences, I'm sure. So, sir, I'll ask you about two best initiatives you took as DG ICMR.
With the DG ICMR, and one of the things which was very um, uh, big challenging things to me, that its whole budget was 29 crores. It has 29 institutes and 1 crore. It didn't get even a coat of paint. And most of the institutes were working out of a rented accommodations. So when I left ICMR, it became 1,000 crore per year budget, and it was same as any other organization. And each institute has a spanking new building. Every place had got a very good instrumentation, because in PGI, very few of you know that I worked in 4 departments. It was before Dhar committee, and because I had a very broad exposure on the subjects, I actually changed departments at my will, and and very few of you know that I also am qualified public health person, and that also I took pain. And when I went to ICMR, all those who were in laboratory, I sent them to John Hopkins or UCLA or Emory to get a public health qualification, and those who were in the public health, I sent them to laboratory to learn something, or clinics, to so that their education becomes complete. So that was something which is building up of the infrastructure. The second initiative was that I made ICMR into one of the that ICMR DGS secretary. Dr. Ramlinga Swami has tried, many others have tried, and they have not succeeded. So that was another thing which was created. The other major things which actually happened during my time and my initiative, that miltofosine and paramomycin came into fruition, and this created the Leishmania elimination program, and the albendazole was added with the DEC for the filaria elimination program, and I'm very happy to say that now the ivermectin addition also happened because of my association with the neglected tropical diseases. So the neglected tropical disease, many of these initiatives, which actually went into international and national policies and interventions, came out while I was there. Another major thing which came up during my time was, at least we were doing about 7 or 8 major vaccine initiatives. So the cholera vaccine, first cholera vaccine trial and introduction and manufacturing in India happened during my tenure, and there was a publication in the Lancet. And the typhoid vaccine initiative also came up, and typhoid vaccine manufacturing also came. That came during and the paper was published in New England Journal of Medicine. The first 8 trials, with the 2 phase 1 trials in which one of the vaccines was made in India, also happened during those days. So vaccine trial initiatives started. The FETP program, which is, because my heart was always in public health, so it was started with the CDC initiative. This was started in the National Institute of Epidemiology. I converted this as a National Institute of Epidemiology. This was a statistics institute. Statistician got very annoyed with me, but I thought that we need a National Institute of Epidemiology. And then we started a course of the public health nutrition in the Environment Center Public Health and Environmental course, a master's course, a nutrition master's course, and also in the vector master's course into the vector epidemiology and vector biology. So in this way, and in this way, we created a network of 12 various institutes and started the MPH course also in the National Institute of Epidemiology. So created a network of epidemiologists, and when I had some say in the CRO WHO, created the CPEN, which was the Southeast Asian Public Health Consortium. I also understood while we were growing, and I must tell you a story that once in PJ in early days, nobody knew statistics. In that particular session, Dr. Chutani asked everyone what is t-test, what is a standard deviation, and what is probability. And nobody could answer, and everybody failed during those interviews for promotion. Everybody funked that, except one, Dr. Das in the hematology department. He knew what was statistics during those days. So so I came to know the power of statistics and data crunching, and created a network of statistician and statistical centers, statistics center within India, and that is now prospering quite well. In the same way, there was a network of tuberculosis institutes. There was a network of vector biologists, and there was a network of virology centers, because I found that virology is one of the things which is languishing. I actually handled 11 major outbreaks in the pandemics, and
Right.
these were, the first one was the H5N1, and then it was SARS, then it was H1N1, Chandipura virus, Congo hemorrhagic virus, Japanese bee encephalitis, as well as the dengue and chikungunya. In Kerala Assembly,
Right.
I was hauled up for this. So one of the advanced center for virology, for which I am the chairman now in Kerala, which has been set up now. And in the Bhubaneswar, I set up the Asian Institute of Public Health and Technology, which is now a university. I was the first president of that. So these were during the ICMR days. These were some of the initiatives which were taken. But essentially, I tried to build up the science also over there. So I found that that how the genomic science is very important for public health and surveillance. So some of these tools were developed during these pandemics, and COVID days, they are coming very, very handy. I
Right.
also started interacting with the organizations, industry, and another confession which I am making, which you don't know, many of you, that the 4 vaccines which are now in the market, I had something to do with them. One
Oh,
was is a vaccine on seasonal influenza, quadrivalent vaccine. The other one is a subunit rabies vaccine, and the third one is a shingles vaccine, and
right.
fourth one which will come will be HPV vaccine. So so even now it's very, very I started those initiatives during that, and I'm carrying through now. So actually, it is not very important that when you, and in these COVID days, I have I started to keep me up to date, and whatever I stated, it was because I understood that a third voice is very, very important. So, and those third voices uh, were given, and
Right.
whatever I had said 15 days or 1 month before, the same was adopted by Government of India. All
Okay.
of those are on record. I have published a huge number of papers in scientific journals, in almost every newspaper, and in the media, try to give something of importance to everyone, whichever had to be done.
Right.
So you really never say goodbye. So
Yeah.
now I have to go to a
Right.
Lok Sabha TV at 3 o'clock. So we'll take your leave.
So
And
last question we want to ask you about any a few message, like a crisp message for young clinicians, young public health experts, so that they are in the grooming stage of their career. So how they can
so,
groom themselves.
so one of the things is that never crack on crisis. If you face a crisis, think while you are sleeping, next day you will have a solution. Try to be a likable face. If people don't like your face, you will not get cooperation. Be very humble, and because the chairs are very temporary, they come and go. But if you are humble, if you are feet grounded on earth, you do well. Try to help others, because if you help others, you also are helped and can really grow. And always share your happiness, share your sadness, and respect the traditions, and those who had shown you the path, because if you forget them, then you forget your roots are very, very important. Thank
Right,
you.
right, right, sir. And I think you have also told that the hard work and the persistence in your
Yeah,
career, whatever you
absolutely.
chooses. So I think the hard
Absolutely.
work should be done
Actually,
through.
what happens that somebody opens the door for you. After that,
Right,
whatever you make of your life is in your hand.
right,
Nobody really gives you bani banai kheer.
right,
You will have to make your own kheer, and
right,
it is easier to make something out of a ruin. Like
right,
I changed 4 departments, I left everything which was there behind,
right, right,
and ultimately you build up, and
right,
it is easier to build up if there is nothing.
right, sir, right, right,
So it is very difficult to improve on Taj Mahal. Okay.
right, sir, right. Then sure.
So
So I think it was
thank you,
wonderful.
Sonu.
Wonderful talking to you, sir, today. I think we learned from your experiences, your thoughts throughout, and the great experience which you had in different eminent institutions. And I hope that the audience who are listening to this will certainly benefit from your talk. And I think they will try to emulate some of the principles which you have laid down during your entire career, professional as well as personal. So thank
thanks
you.
a lot, sir, so
Thank
for
you.
being with us. And I'm sure our young clinicians and public health specialists, they will benefit from this talk.
Thank you.
So thanks a lot, sir. And now
Thank
this will be followed by news from health from Doc Plexus. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Health Minute Highlights. Researchers at the United States National Institute of Health have commenced a study to evaluate the effect of COVID-19 vaccine on pregnant or postpartum women. The study aims to measure the development and durability of antibodies upon vaccination during pregnancy or in the first 2 postpartum months. They will also study the vaccine-induced antibody transfer to infants. Researchers have developed an artificial heart that includes an autoregulation control mechanism called automode. The built-in pressure sensors effectively produce appropriate physiological responses reflective of the changing needs of the patients treated for end-stage heart failure. Researchers from Purdue University have developed a patent-pending biosensor that can be printed in 3D by an automated printing method. With this technology, critical areas in tissues and organs could rapidly be localized by surgeons during operations. Researchers have found that the measles vaccine is 87.5% effective against SARS-CoV-2 and may offer protection to children against it. The vaccinated participants experienced less severe symptoms than those who were not vaccinated. Do you think the measles vaccine can be repurposed against COVID-19 in children? Share your opinion by commenting below. Health Minute, the most liked segment of Doc Plexus, brings you the latest happenings in the medical field. Stay tuned for more insights. Happy Doc Plexing!